Hi, my name is Pat, and this is my channel, Book Chat with Pat, and I'm glad that you're here. Today is another episode of Poetry Thursday. Last week, I had presented a Poetry Thursday episode devoted to the poetry of cats, and that was in response to a conversation I had had with Greg at Another Bibliophile Reads, where he had said that he would love to read or hear some poetry about cats. If you know Greg and you know his channel, you know that his videos often feature beautiful footage of his many rescued cats that he and his wife have rescued over the years. This video and the preparation for that video uncovered much more poetry about cats than I could ever have put in one video. So in the summer, in this coming summer, there will be a future installment of poetry about cats. But I also received some other requests for some other thematic Poetry Thursday episodes. So in addition to focusing on the works of a single poet in an episode, which I am going to be continuing to do, I thought that I would also take up these requests for some of these thematic topics. So it just seems fitting that today I should do the poetry of dogs. Just as with cats, there's more poetry written about dogs than could ever possibly be included in one video. But I'm going to start with just a few that I discovered in just a preliminary search, and these are just some wonderful poems featuring our furry friends, dogs. One poet, one of my favorite poets in the world, is Mary Oliver, and she wrote an entire book about dogs. She wrote dog songs. And this beautiful book, which also is beautifully illustrated, is, according to the description, a celebration of the special bond between a human and a dog, as understood through the poet's relationship with the many canines that have accompanied her on her daily walks, warmed her home, and inspired her work. I've shared a couple of Mary Oliver dog poems with some of my booktube friends who have dogs featured on their channels. So I'm going to share a couple of hers as well. I'm going to start with one of hers, and this is a poem I have shared with a few of you. This is called Little Dog's Rhapsody in the Night by Mary Oliver. He puts his cheek against mine and makes small expressive sounds, and when I'm awake or awake enough, he turns upside down, his 4 paws in the air, and his eyes dark and fervent. Tell me you love me, he says. Tell me again. Could there be a sweeter arrangement? Over and over, he gets to ask. I get to tell. Next, I'd like to read My Dog Practices Geometry by Cathryn Essinger. I do not understand the poets who tell me that I should not personify. Every morning, the willow auditions for a new role outside my bedroom window. Today, she is Clytemnestra. Yesterday, a southern belle, lost in her own melodrama, sinking on her skirts. Nor do I like the mathematicians who tell me I cannot say the zinnias are counting on their fingers, or the dog is practicing her geometry. Even though every day I watch her using the yard's big maple as the apex of a triangle from which she bisects the circumference of the lawn until she finds the place where the rabbit has escaped or the squirrel upped the ante by climbing into a new Euclidean plane. She stumbles across the lawn, eyes pulling her feet along, gaze fixed on a rodent working the maze of the oak as if it were his own invention. Her feet tangling in the roots of trees and tripping, yes, even over themselves, until I go out to assist by pointing at the squirrel and repeating, "There, there." But instead of following my outstretched arm to the crown of the tree where the animal is now lounging under a canopy of leaves, catching its breath, charting its next escape, she looks to my mouth, eager to read my lips, confident that I, who can bring her home from across the field with a word, who can speak for the willow and the zinnia, can surely charm a squirrel down from a tree. Another favorite contemporary poet of mine is Billy Collins, and this is his poem, Dharma. The way the dog trots out the front door every morning without a hat or an umbrella, without any money or the keys to her doghouse, never fails to fill the saucer of my heart with milky admiration. Who provides a finer example of a life without encumbrance? Thoreau in his curtainless hut with a single plate, a single spoon? Gandhi with his staff and his holy diapers? Off she goes into the material world with nothing but her own brown coat, with her modest blue collar, following only her wet nose. The twin portals of her steady breathing, followed only by the plume of her tail. If only she did not shove the cat aside every morning and eat all his food. What a model of self-containment she would be. What a paragon of earthly detachment. If only she were not so eager for a rub behind the ears, so acrobatic in her welcomes. If only I were not her God. Next, I'm going to read Dog by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. The dog trots freely in the street and sees reality, and the things he sees are bigger than himself, and the things he sees are his reality. Drunks in doorways, moons on trees, the dog trots freely through the street, and the things he sees are smaller than himself. Fish on newsprint, ants in holes, chickens in Chinatown windows, their heads a block away. The dog trots freely in the street, and the things he smells smell something like himself. The dog trots freely in the street past puddles and babies, cats and cigars, pool rooms and policemen. He doesn't hate cops, he merely has no use for them, and he goes past them, and past the dead cows hung up whole in front of the San Francisco meat market. He would rather eat a tender cow than a tough policeman, though either might do. And he goes past the Romeo Ravioli factory, and past Coit's Tower, and past Congressman Doyle. He's afraid of Coit's Tower, but he's not afraid of Congressman Doyle. Although what he hears is very discouraging, very depressing, very absurd to a sad young dog like himself, to a serious dog like himself. But he has his own free world to live in, his own fleas to eat. He will not be muzzled. Congressman Doyle is just another fire hydrant to him. The dog trots freely in the street and has his own dog's life to live and to think about and to reflect upon, touching and tasting and testing everything, investigating everything, without benefit of perjury, a real realist with a real tale to tell, with a real tale to tell it with, a real, live, barking, democratic dog engaged in real, free enterprise with something to say about ontology, something to say about reality and how to see it and how to hear it, with his head cocked sideways at street corners, as if he is just about to have his picture taken for Victor Records, listening for his master's voice, and looking like a living question mark into the great gramophone of puzzling existence, with its wondrous hollow horn, which always seems just about to spout forth some victorious answer to everything. Next, I'm going to read Mother Doesn't Want a Dog by Judith Viorst. Mother doesn't want a dog. Mother says they smell and never sit when you say sit or even when you yell. And when you come home late at night and there is ice and snow, you have to go back out because the dumb dog has to go. Mother doesn't want a dog. Mother says they shed, and always lets the strangers in and bark at friends instead, and do disgraceful things on rugs, and track mud on the floor, and flop upon your bed at night and snore their doggy snore. Mother doesn't want a dog. She's making a mistake, because more than a dog, I think, she will not want this snake. And finally, I'm going to close with Mary Oliver again. And this is her poem called Her Grave. She would come back dripping thick water from the green bog. She would fall at my feet. She would draw the black skin from her gums in a hideous and wonderful smile, and I would rub my hands over her pricked ears and her cunning elbows, and I would hug the barrel of her body, amazed at the unassuming, perfect arch of her neck. It took 4 of us to carry her into the woods. We did not think of music, but anyway, it began to rain slowly. Her wolfish, invitational half-pounce, her great and lordly satisfaction at having chased something. My great and lordly satisfaction at her splash of happiness as she barged through the pitch pines, swiping my face with her wild, slightly mossy tongue. Does the hummingbird think he himself invented his crimson throat? He is wiser than that, I think. A dog lives 15 years if you're lucky. Do the cranes crying out in the high clouds think it is all their own music? A dog comes to you and lives with you in your own house, but you do not, therefore, own her, as you do not own the rain, or the trees, or the laws which pertain to them. Does the bear wandering in the autumn up the side of the hill think all by herself she has imagined the refuge and the refreshment of her long slumber? A dog can never tell you what she knows from the smells of the world, but you know, watching her, that you know almost nothing. Does the water snake with his backbone of diamonds think the black tunnel on the bank of the pond is a palace of his own making? She roved ahead of me through the fields, yet would come back or wait for me or be somewhere. Now she is buried under the pines. Nor will I argue it or pray for anything but modesty and not to be angry. Through the trees, there is the sound of the wind palavering, the smell of the pine needles. What is it but a taste of the infallible energies? How strong was her dark body? How apt is her grave place? How beautiful is her unshakable sleep? Finally, the slick mountains of love break over us. As always, I thank you for watching. I hope that you're doing well. I'll speak with you again soon. Take care.